Since the earliest of civilizations, we have made much progress. But that progress came with a cost. Our world has changed.
Systems checked. Ready to prime.
And despite our advances in both science and technology, we can no longer deny what is clear. Our time on Earth is ending.
Separação completa. Ir para decolagem.
So we turn our gaze upward to the stars and embark on the greatest journey in human history. A journey into the unknown, to discover a new world, a new home, a new beginning for mankind.
Thank you very much for joining us for our live stream today of Civilization Beyond Earth. My name is Pete Murray. I'm here at Firaxis Games with Dave McDonough, who is one of the two lead designers of Civilization Beyond Earth. We're really excited. Today we're going to show you guys the seeded start, the process by which you put a colony together to go and settle on an alien planet, and what all's involved with that. But before we get into our program, I have a very cool announcement. For the very first time ever, Firaxis Games will be hosting here at Hunt Valley Firaxicon. And Firaxicon is a convention we're putting together on Saturday, September 27th. That is for you guys, the fans of Firaxis Games. We're going to put a day together where you're going to be able to come, you're going to be able to play games with members of the dev team. We're going to have an XCOM tournament. You'll get a chance to play Beyond Earth before anybody else, before it comes out. We'll have the ability for you to play the game. And we'll have talks and a dinner with Sid, and you'll get a chance to meet some of the people that you've seen putting these games together. So Dave, you and Will be there.
Yes, that's right. We'll be here along with the Civ Beyond Earth team, as will Ed Beach, lead designer of the Civ 5 expansions, Jake Solomon, who needs no introduction, and the man himself, Mr. Sid Meier.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. So there's more information available at civilization.com. You can go there after this show. There will be a post up, and you'll be able to get access, or you'll be able to get a link to the registration for it and more detailed information about it. But Firaxicon, September 27th, make sure you keep your schedule open for that. So before we get started on today's show, I'd like to thank our friends and partners at AMD. They've actually donated a very cool computer for us to use for this. It's an amazing PC. It's got AMD's R9 290 video card. It's one of their newer models that we're going to be showing today, running the game actually in Mantle for the first time, which is very, very cool. We're going to be showing that more of the in-game stuff and how the Mantle features really help with making that game look fantastic in future broadcasts. But for today, yeah, got a great machine to show it off on. So, Dave, seeded start. This is one of the big differences between Beyond Earth and previous Civilization games. Do you want to go into a little bit about why you guys went with this sort of build your own Civ approach for Beyond Earth?
Yeah, sure. So, as anyone who plays historic Civ knows, part of the fun of the game is getting to play cultures and peoples from history that you recognize and that you already like. And their stories are already told, and so when you play the game, it's exciting to find the things that you love about them there waiting for you to play with. So for instance, I love to play as France, and I love going into Civ 5 and being able to see the musketeer or the 12-pounder cannon and be like, those are the French of history and of renown that I know. That's what's fun about that. But in Beyond Earth, we don't obviously have history to draw from. It's a fictitious, imagined future. So in order to offer the players that sort of like opportunity to identify and feel like this is a Civ that they're going to enjoy, we let them construct it for themselves. It sort of makes sense that if you were going to be the leader of a colony expedition, you would get to decide what the priorities for that colony were. You know, who you would want to take with you and what you would want to bring, what would be important and necessary to reestablish civilization on a new planet. So there's a variety of options that you get to choose from that you mix and match over several steps that by the time you're done produce a unique combination that is the identity of yourself, of your Civ. And that's where you start. And that's what sort of puts the very first spin on who you're going to be on the new planet.
Okay. So what we should do now is we should probably take you straight into the game and show you what this is going to look like. So we'll jump into the game here. We are at the main shell. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do a single player game. And we will set up this game here. So these are the initial things. We're just going to leave this at Mercury. This is our standard difficulty that you start out as. Just to show you, look, there are other difficulty levels in the game. Okay, we'll hit accept. So, very first step is picking a sponsor. So it's probably worth going through these in order and talk about what these are and how they're going to affect the course of this. But these are the big kahunas, the big things for this game. So let's start with what your sponsor does for you in the game.
So they're the name of your leader and also the character, in the case of the people you play against, so the people you deal with in diplomacy. And the name of the civilization that's represented everywhere, so the tag that gets put on your units and cities and everything else. So this is sort of the biggest and most foundational part of your identity is who you represent. And they have the biggest and strongest benefits, the ones that carry through all the way through the game, that really form kind of a thread that you can build a grand strategy around.
Okay. Well, let's go through and look at some of these. ARC, the American Reclamation Corporation. We've got corporate intrigue here clearly. So Covert Ops are 25% faster and cause 25% more intrigue. So for this, we should probably take a step back and talk about Covert Operations in general and then why this ability is interesting.
So Covert Ops is a sort of a form of black hat diplomacy or alternative competition.
Right.
It's got its roots in the espionage system from Civ 5, but is significantly more sophisticated. You send covert agents to other player cities where you can start with low-level things like just seeing what they're up to and stealing modest amounts of energy, science, and other stuff. But you can eventually grow that into sort of a more elaborate and damaging clandestine apparatus where you can, up to and including taking over the city with a coup or staging massive operations, what we call bombshells, things like a dirty bomb or a device that summons siege worms, you know, some pretty heavy-duty stuff. So it's a way to compete and hold down the activities of your neighbors that isn't, strictly speaking, open warfare.
Okay. This next one, the Pan-Asian Cooperative, they're rapidly becoming my go-to faction. So we're looking at 10% production towards wonders and 25% worker speed. One of the things that I really like about this is that 25% worker speed for building the tile improvements, especially at the beginning of the game when things are fairly fraught and it would be easy to lose a worker that represents a fairly sizable investment of your production at that point. The ability to finish these tile improvements pretty quickly and then get out of the way of trouble is pretty impressive.
Yeah, the pack is definitely the infrastructure civ. Whatever else they do, they're going to outbuild you, or you're going to outbuild everyone else if you play as them. And production against wonders is valuable, and definitely, as every civ player knows, if you can win a wonder race, it's worth your time. But the 25% for worker speed is one of the bigger ones for the reason you mentioned. In the early game, when land is a lot more tense and you can't really rely on workers being safe out in the wilderness by themselves, just being able to get in and get out faster can give you a leg up and get you using your land to its fullest potential faster.
Now this next one, Franco-Iberia, is a free tech for every 10 virtues developed. And one of the things that I really like about both culture and science in Beyond Earth is that they're kind of brought together very nicely in the knowledge virtue tree. The knowledge virtue tree has advantages to growing both of those. And Franco-Iberia has this really nice synergy. So,
yeah, the Franco-Iberians are generally good at culture across the board. And so to make up for what you might call the lack of hard benefits, plus X% that they have, we offer you a way to tie them together and leverage your cultural power to gain a technological edge, which can translate into the same. Mm-hmm. So, like you said, the knowledge virtue tree has a lot of synergies with technology for anybody, but the Franco-Iberians have the benefit of making virtually anything that they do in the culture system help their technology.
Okay, and then you get to choose the technology, right? I mean, this is not, the game doesn't give you a random tech. This is a tech of your choice.
Yep, of your choice.
Okay. Next one, Slovak Federation. Units in orbit 20% longer, and the first orbital unit gives you a free tech. So this is, that's a pretty solid opener for a game right there.
Mm-hmm.
There's some really good early orbital units that you can put up, and then getting a tech, I guess in kind of that mid-early game range when it feels like I'm launching my first satellites, barring having gotten one from an expedition or a quest or a resource pod. That's pretty impressive.
Yep.
So the orbital layer, controlling the orbital layer, very valuable?
It's very valuable. It's not something you can safely ignore, especially if you're playing as or against someone who is a Slovak Federation, because if they get up there first, they're going to use it and hold on to it for the whole game, and eventually it's going to become just this oppressive umbrella of power that you have to deal with, or that you're wielding over your neighbors if you're playing as them. So, getting into the orbital layer first is always a valuable move, because the land will get grabbed up, the land, so to speak, the area. And the Slovak Federation power of being able to stay up there longer means that once they stake a claim, they can hold it better than you can. And so they have an edge all the time at taking and holding that orbital territory.
Okay. Paul Australia, this is a pretty impressive one. So cities able to send trade routes may support one more trade route than normal. So not quite Venice from Brave New World, but pretty impressive. Trade routes being pretty critical, especially working with stations and the like.
Yeah, the trade system in Beyond Earth is a lot more sophisticated than its predecessor. There's a lot more opportunities for trade and a lot more interesting kind of alternative options for who to trade with. So there's a lot of pressure on where to send your somewhat limited trade routes. And if you're good at it, you can play that to produce a lot of power for yourself. But if you play Paul Australia, you just have the breathing room to be able to do a little more, to not have to make so many critical decisions, but just use your spare trade route where applicable to get the best of both.
Yeah. Cavithan Protectorate. This is one that's very different than anything we've seen in a Civ before, which is outposts develop into cities 50% faster. So for this, I guess to explain why this is cool, we need to talk a little bit about what outposts are and why they're not cities and why turning one into the other fast is a good thing.
So outposts are how you expand in Beyond Earth.
Right.
Instead of being able to develop fully fledged cities sort of from the ground up, you have to put a little legwork in first to make the land safe for yourself. So you send out your colonist unit and it stakes a claim and grabs a single plot of territory and will gradually grab the rest in a ring around itself.
Right.
And when it's fully grown up, then it will turn into a city. So you have to invest a little time, a little protection out there while the outpost is growing up. And it's important to stress that second one, because outposts are very vulnerable. They have very weak combat strength, no attack capability, and they cannot build or work any tiles. So while they're growing, they're big fat targets and can easily be taken out by marauding aliens or hostile players. So the Cavithan's able to speed through that part of the game a little faster, not have to leave their outposts in danger for quite as long, means that they are better at expanding than you. They'll be able to grab territory and hold it with powerful cities faster than another Civ.
All right. This next one is Brasilia, which almost needs no explanation. This is just straight up military strength. Your soldiers are going to be shootier, your tanks are going to be tankier, your cavalry is going to be cavalry-er.
Right. Can't go wrong. Guns are a solution to every problem eventually.
This next one is interesting. The Aggregate Union, plus 10% food in growing cities when healthy. In Beyond Earth, health is our global limiter on growth. As long as you're healthy, you're going to continue to grow. So what's the advantage of having food, more food when you're healthy?
Well, food directly contributes to how much population growth each city has. And the more that you can make use of the food that you have, and the faster you can add population, the more powerful the city will become. As every Civ player knows, the city is the engine of a Civ. Cities are the source of all your power in the game. So the quicker you can power up your power-producing cities, the better. And since the African Union can do that a little faster than anyone else, it means that they sort of can make do with less. They're able to thrive in less optimal situations than others because they can continue to grow and continue to develop their cities where another Civ might start to struggle.
So as long as you can keep that health up, then the African Union is not going to do too badly. You can drop them on the edge of the desert. They're not necessarily going to be slowed up by...
Yeah, they're very resilient.
Okay. So, sponsors. Let's move on to the next step. So once you've designated your sponsor and you've got your kind of bonus for the course of the game, the next step is to pick the colonists that you're going to bring with you. And this is pretty cool. There's some neat options here. One thing I did notice is that there's no faction that provides you with a straight up science bonus. If you want that, you need to pick scientists.
So the colonists are the second most far-reaching choice that you make. After your sponsor, the colonist is next. So in these cases, like you said, every sponsor has a benefit that lasts for the whole game. And the colonists augment that and let you either double down on what you're already good at, or go broad and try to plug a hole in your strategy with where you think you might end up being weak. You can choose the colonist choice that will sort of bring you back up to speed.
Okay.
So as you can see, there's 5 choices, and they more or less align with the 5 major yields of the game: science, food, energy, production, and culture.
Right. Which ones do you like? I'm actually finding artists, and that knowledge virtue tree is pretty cool. The extra health is always a benefit, especially when you're trying to do expansion early on. And then, you know, getting those virtues pretty early on, you can get access to some of those science ones. But PAC plus engineers is also kind of a no-brainer. It's like more production all the time.
You're going to watch out because if you're too strong in production, you could end up building yourself into a hole when it comes to food or health, and your cities suddenly kind of start to look like Blade Runner, and they're not happy places to live, and your civ will start to drag a little. So whenever I play Pan-Asia, I tend to pick a colonist that goes broad. I tend not to double down in production, only because I know I just don't want the headache of having to go out and look for other sources of food or health when I could have just chosen a colonist choice that does
Yeah,
it.
but in Counterpoint, Missile Rover in 3 turns is hard to argue with.
Well, yeah, if you're going to conquer the world.
Well, who isn't, ultimately?
Right.
All right, this next one is important, but it's important in an interesting way. So, spacecraft. Continental Surveyor reveals the coasts on the map, not the interior, just the coastlines, correct?
That's right. And the important thing to note about the spacecraft is that if you look at all the benefits, they all apply pretty much only on the first turn. So now we're starting to step down from the kind of buffs that last the whole game to things that just represent sort of an initial spin for your civ. What immediate starting advantage you're going to want to capitalize on. So, for instance, Continental Surveyor that reveals coasts. If you were playing a map with very little water, it might not be a good choice. But if you're playing a map with tons of tiny islands, it's hugely powerful because now you can see where the largest islands are and where the optimal expansion points are without having to explore. You can just go straight there and get way ahead of your competitors on grabbing the best land.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, this is sort of like making an educated bet for what you're going to do quickly in the game and what you're going to want power to do. I tend to go with the fusion reactor because money is good for everything.
Well, yeah, and you've always been the energy.
I'm the commerce player. I like playing wealthy, but I've also found the tectonic scanner can be extremely powerful for the same reason. So
one of the things that I like about tectonic scanner is that normally these resources require you to research a tech before you can see where they are on the map. And these are some pretty impressive resources. Petroleum, super helpful for building orbital units. Geothermal for, tile improvements.
Late game buildings, huge wonders.
Wonders need them. I'm thinking of things like the tectonic anvil, I think requires 5 geothermal to run on. And titanium, that's aerospace units and some of the advanced.
Needed for most of your military infrastructure once you get past a certain point.
But what's interesting about picking up the tectonic scanner is it allows you to either defer developing those techs that let you detect these in the environment, or if you discover, for example, you're sitting on a giant stock of petroleum, you go for that branch tech first, and then beeline to the the leaf tech underneath it that lets you pick up a special tile improvement or a building that uses that resource in a particular way. So I guess this is interesting because it's almost like guides your technological growth in some interesting directions, which I think is worth looking into.
Mm-hmm. And then the other two that we haven't talked about, retrograde thrusters, wider area for choosing where to land.
Do you move your settler on turn one?
Right.
This is the build for you.
So as you probably remember from the last live stream, you don't have a settler on turn one. You land with a colony ship from orbit.
Right.
And you just simply tell your ship where to go.
Right.
And you have a radius within which you can land, so you have some choice of starting location. Mm-hmm. This lets you make that starting choice wider. So, and it's interesting because not only does it reveal more options for you to land on, it also shows a wider area of the map at the beginning of the game. So you start with some pretty great information about your starting land, and that too can govern your technological decisions. You could see the resources nearby, see the terrain features and the alien activity nearby, and build for the technology that's going to give you the improvements to use that well right away.
And this last one, the life form sensor, this is revealing alien nests on the map, which is a very, very interesting decision if you choose to take this. I find this is my, am I going to play Harmony this game decision point? Because if there are no nests nearby and those masses they sit on top of, then maybe you have some other alternatives for it.
It also will help you make some early decisions about how much time and energy to invest in military.
Yeah.
Like if you can land and see that there's aliens pretty far away, you get away with not having a Marine quite so quickly, or having an ultrasonic fence, so you can devote your early builds to something else, so that by the time the aliens do kind of figure out that you're there and come looking around, you already have some power behind you, and you can start to crank out military faster if you need it, or already have the fence in place and just keep them away while you continue to play your pacifist style.
Yeah. And then finally, cargo.
Mm-hmm.
So this determines what you start with, what you bring down to the planet, and some really neat choices here. Mm-hmm. So do you start with that extra population in your city, which is, getting that second person in your city has always been kind of a big deal. Laboratory, starting with the pioneering technology. Why is pioneering technology important? Why would you want to start the game with that?
Well, it's maybe one of the most controversial design decisions we've made in the game, but pioneering is a technology you need to research before you could build a colonist and expand. So unlike, I think, almost every Civ game ever, you do not start this game with the ability to make more than one city. And the thinking behind it was, if you land from orbit after this sort of razor-thin margin, long-shot mission through space, and land on a new planet, and you pretty much invested all of your energy just getting there, and you're on an alien world whose mysteries are strange to you and whose dangers are unknown, and you do not have the capability just to walk out, stake a claim, and pretend like you can live there comfortably. You have to invest a little bit of effort in sort of getting the hang of the place before you can do that. So it's a technology that's available right away, and it's fairly cheap, but it is a step that you have to take at some point to research pioneering and get the access to the colonists. It also comes with access to the trade units, which is very valuable too, and that might also influence your decision. So here at the very end of your seated start, you can undo basically that controversial decision and say, I'm just going to start with this.
Yeah.
Like every Civ past, we will begin the game with the ability to expand right away.
Okay. Begin with a clinic building in your first city. This is the very first science building. It's +1 science and +1 health. Mm-hmm. So it's a solid opener too. It's going to start that beaker meter ticking. Yeah,
it's kind of like an alternative lower stakes play to hydroponics. If you start with an extra pop, you have the ability to work another tile right away, which could produce more resource, potentially, if you have a good city location, or if you, for instance, have paired it with the retrograde thrusters and you were able to pick a really good start location. You can put your first 2 citizens on great spots and get off to a great start.
Right.
But starting with a clinic not only gets you going on quests a little bit faster, but it says, well, instead of sort of taking the chance and seeing what I land with, I'm going to just invest right away in a building whose quantity is known and say health is always valuable, science is always valuable. We're just going to start with that and build on that. And so if you pick raw materials, you're more of like a city density, city power player, and if you start with hydroponics, more of a growth and territory-wide player.
Gotcha. Begin with soldiers. That's pretty self-explanatory.
Mm-hmm. There's dangerous things down there. Why not bring a guy with some guns?
Guns are always fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then a worker unit. This is really interesting. This is one that I find pays off in spades if you land right on top of a food resource or near a food resource like fungi or something or fruit. Then you can immediately get that plantation up and running and get that food going in the city to help the growth. I also find I build them fairly early, but again, you're landing with an unprotected worker unit, which is an interesting decision.
So yeah, so it makes a good pair with your alien life form scanner, for instance, because then you can put the worker far away from where you think the aliens will come from. You do start with an explorer, everyone does, so you can at least see them coming, and he's got weak combat strength, and of course the city can attack.
Yeah.
So there's some protection you can offer your worker, but yes, it is sort of like a risky move. It's kind of a power play. You can definitely get your city going faster by starting with a worker, but it's dangerous. If an alien comes in that you weren't paying attention to, and it takes out your worker, that's your whole cargo choice squandered because.
Yeah.
So if you do it, you wanna know what you're doing. Is all I'm going to say.
That's probably true for a lot of things in Civ.
Yeah.
And finally, what planet do you go to?
Mm-hmm.
This is pretty cool. This is basically sets some of the map script of what you're going to see. So, are you going to go with the Terran world, the Protean world, the Atlantean world? And for those of you viewing along with us, you can see that these are, continental versus one giant landmass versus, individual tiny islands, approaches for things.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I really like are where these names came from.
Well, they come from the names of the members of the team.
Yes.
So it was just a little opportunity for some, non-gameplay impacting fun on the part of the guys who work on this project, and it's fun to play the game and roll a planet that's named after yourself or your friend. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna roll a little bit and see if we can have one of us come up.
It might take a little while.
Oh, look, Ed's world.
Mm-hmm.
We could choose.
That's probably a good choice. I'm sure it's well balanced.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Real quick, let's just go into the advanced setup. So people have asked a lot of questions like, is this going to have the same flexibility as Civ 5 in terms of my control of map scripts? And the answer is, oh my willie.
You betcha.
Yeah. So we can begin with map type. So these are some of the different worlds available to you.
Mm-hmm.
I would also point out that this does contain the map packs that are in the Exoplanets pre-order incentive, which are a lot of fun. Kepler 186F is an actual exoplanet. It's a lot Earth massy. It was fun to do that as one of the worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Typical map size, so from dual to massive, determines where you go. Map terrain, so this is where you can set the biome.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Difficulty and game pace. Again, you can disable victory types if you would like to, and you can set some of the advanced options as well too.
Mm-hmm.
So, deferring virtues, having everybody land on turn 0, which is an interesting choice. Certainly, the aim is set up to have the everybody arrive on different turns. Having them all land on turn 0 sets some different things.
Right.
Explain the concept of new random seed to people.
So would you read it?
Okay, basically it's every time you load the game, the random seed generator gets redone. So if something goes really bad and you feel like you got cheated out by the game, you can toggle this and re-roll it, and that is your choice.
Mm-hmm. So a little like the in XCOM. It's like, yes, you could, if things go badly, if things go south for you, you can save the game before you started the encounter. Mm-hmm. You can reload and do it again and not lose the game.
Right.
And there's some who take sort of a philosophical perspective on this and say, well, are you really playing it anymore? Like you didn't suffer the sort of the tragedy of defeat, and getting hit and getting back up is part of the game, right? So if you believe, like they do, that getting hit and getting back up is part of the game, you can turn on that option and it will be so. You will not be able to reload the game and kind of like escape your fate by doing things differently.
All right, so I think one thing we can do real quick to show our viewers is let's just actually go through and we'll build a faction together and we'll play a few turns with it and then we'll jump back in on the main menu and try something different. So who do we want to pick? Let's pick somebody who's going to be awesome on some of those initial turns. So I'm thinking, want to try Pan-Asian Cooperative?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll try to show off some of the coolness that is that. So you like to go broad with them?
Well, what I don't like to do is double them down on production. Now, it's an entirely viable strategy. It's just not my preference. I prefer to have kind of all my bases covered so that, you know, the things that I tend to think of as lower priority, I can at least rely on in the back of my brain working pretty well.
All right.
So I like to pair them with...
you want to pick scientists?
I usually pair them with refugees.
Really?
Because, like I said, they have almost nothing that they do that gives them an advantage to food and growth. So
Okay.
food growth and health tend to be their soft spots. So I usually pick them I usually pick refugees for Pan-Asia, or I pick artists.
Okay, well, we'll pick refugees. I like that decision. What do you think we should do? I think we should show retrograde thrusters.
Yeah, why not?
That's pretty cool to see. Where the landing area is? What are we going to bring with us?
Well, you got to bring a worker.
We got to bring a worker so we can show it off.
You can use as a Pan-Asia advantage.
And then we're back. Let's go to
Ed's
Beach,
World.
Beach 280G. I have a good feeling about that. Gods and Kings and Planetarium.
Sounds good.
So here we go. All right, and if you're just joining us now, I'm Pete Murray. I'm here with David McDonough, one of the two lead designers for Civilization Beyond Earth. We've been walking through the seeded start options, how you go about building a colony and settle on an alien world. We've just built one, and we are ready to see what we have for this game. Retrograde thrusters go. Holy cow.
All right.
Oh, this is cool.
So here's a great example. So normally with planetfall, you have one tile's worth of radius to pick from.
Right.
Which you might note, you civ fans out there, maps to how far the colonist or the settler unit can move in one turn, if you were to start with just one in a previous civ.
Right.
But with retrograde thrusters, you have two, and as we've just so happened to roll, that actually extends beyond this canyon formation to a different part of the map that's a little shrouded in mystery, but you'll notice is very close to a pile of fragments. So I think that's tubers. Right?
That's very,
So you can on the other side of the canyon to get those, but not really know what you've got going for you. The far side of the canyon, where most of the plots are, is clearly the safer place to land.
Right, right. And there's some interesting choices to make here. Certainly two chitin resources
Side
right
by side.
here, side by side. That would be a great place to drop and you know, build those initial paddocks and get that up and going.
You notice your radius also lets you make it out to the coast on either side. So
Yeah.
you could found with the ability to build ships right away.
Here.
I might choose the one right above that, right
here.
there, because
The only one I don't want to reason to do that is there's miasma in that tile, and we get dinged on health for that, don't we?
No, miasma doesn't suck health. It'll make it harder for you to improve. You'll have to get some technology before your worker can safely work there.
Chat will tell you about how bad I am with miasma and my citizens' health.
Right, but the reason I say so is that the lower plot starts with some canyon right inside the inner city radius, and canyon is a non-usable piece of terrain.
Okay.
So
All right.
I might try right there. You could also just go right in the middle where...
I don't want to lose the chitin by dropping on it, though.
No.
So let's drop here.
Okay.
Lose the forest. Well, we lose the production for the forest, but is this a hill tile?
But you're Pan-Asia. Production isn't going to be your problem for you.
That's true. No, this is plains. All right. Well, here we go. Dropping on the forest.
There you go.
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
All right. So
There's your worker, fresh and ready.
first
to go.
things first. You go over there.
And you can already improve that with a paddock.
Yep. And we're going to note this is where having that 25% build speed is really going to come in handy, because we're going to get access to that paddock and
Faster.
get that production out of it that much faster, which is going to be pretty amazing. All right, our explorer drops into miasma.
You should move on from there.
Yeah.
Not hang out there.
Probably not hang out there. Let's go over here. That was a bad choice. Interesting, interesting zone that we've landed in. We must have landed on the pointy end of a continent. Early tech choices, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose pioneering, which trade depot, trade vessel, trade convoy, and our colonist. Let's go ahead and pick that. All right. And then we're choosing production for our city. Lead off with clinic.
Oh, I don't know. I might consider the relic, because culture is what makes your territory grow. And if you want to grab up that second chitin, the quicker you can get extra plots, the better.
Well, I feel pretty good about our odds of getting the chitin before too much longer, but maybe it would be better to push the culture border faster.
You get them both within 20 turns, so it's really just a question of,
yeah.
you know, how are you setting yourself up?
How are you setting
Plus, if you get culture faster, you can get going on virtues faster.
Okay. Then we'll do that. We'll do that. That'll be fun. All right. So we'll play this out. We will play this until we. It doesn't look like we're going to get a chance to build out pioneering. That's probably going to take up too much time for our live stream today. We'd like to go in and show you guys another setup, but that was.
Is that a nest they're sitting on? Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is. So let's explain what we're seeing here.
Those are drones, an alien flying unit. So they can move over land and water with impunity. They can also move over canyons. So that little canyon plot north of your city is no defense at all. They also are sitting on an alien nest, which is where aliens come from. So having that one in proximity to your city, it might end up being problematic. The game might be forcing your hand a little bit now into taking a stance on how you're going to treat the aliens.
Yeah.
Your explorer is standing right next to their nest, which means they're probably going to take alarm and might take a shot at him.
Yeah, they will.
Right. But that doesn't necessarily mean you need to go hostile to them.
No,
your explorer may or may not make it out of there, but if you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone.
Right.
The problem is that if you want to expand and you're already building for a colonist, you're going to have to deal with them sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
So this is just an early opportunity to consider your early game build and your early game strategy.
I will say, 7 Xenamass is pretty tempting. I mean, you could build a lot of late game harmony stuff with 7 Xenamass. So I could look at this and I could say, great, I'll kill these aliens early on, and they will sacrifice for the greater good.
Yeah, the needs of the many.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's watch our explorer get taken out here. Oh no! What a shocking turn of events.
So, to those of you out there, it might seem a little brutal that the very first turn, your explorer got eaten. And maybe it is. The planet is full of alien life, and they've got their own agenda. So, if we had explored a little bit more cautiously, we might have been able to avoid that. If we had started with a soldier, we might have been able to avoid that. It's all in the game, as they say. But your worker for the time being is safe. You'll be able to see the drones if they show up long enough to get him back into the city and under cover of your rocket batteries.
All right, well, let's see what happens for the next couple turns. Yeah. Oh, there's our refugees and their +2 food that's kicked in, so we're already at pop 2.
Off to a good start.
Yeah, looks like they're already working that tile. So that'll be good.
Yep.
Next turn. See how things go out. And look at that.
So aliens from the south.
So, shooting wolf beetles.
Well, all you'll do at this point is scare them. They're not going to get that hurt.
Right.
And it's early enough in the game that you've got a little room to, shall we say, poke the aliens before they really start to form an impression of who you are.
Yeah.
So if you're worried about them coming in after your workers, you might consider a warning shot at this point.
It's very tempting, I'll admit. I'm not actually going to save this game.
So why not?
Why not take that shot? So we'll gently encourage them to go somewhere. This is rolling up newspaper smack. And
so your workers are done.
Yeah.
So you got your pick up and running.
I'll move off and show you guys what that looks like. Laser fences, chitin beetles. That's pretty cool. And then we'll turn the yields on so you can see what that looks like.
So, 2 food and 2 pins. Well, remember, the solution to every problem is to build your way out of it. So
that's
when you get the proper tech, open up your city and you can build yourself a lab or something else that produces science.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right. So let's take a moment and we'll go back to our main menu and we'll actually try a different approach this time. So, main So, should we pick what was euphemistically known as the Australian Open? Actually, no. I showed that on a previous live stream. Was picking the most militant faction I could think of. So we will not repeat that this time. But let's choose somebody else who's got a cool option. Let's pick Slovak Federation, because one of the things that we can find in those resource pods is a satellite that we can launch early on. So potentially, if we don't run into any alien nests on turn 3 that kill our explorer, we might be able to get a satellite up in time, which would be good.
Yes, it would. How about this time? A good pairing would be aristocrats, because if you can get enough money and you don't find an orbital unit, you can just buy one.
That sounds good. All right, we'll try that.
You can double down on energy if you like, or
I don't like doubling down on energy. I feel like the temptation's always there to spend it. We do Continental Surveyor and show people how absurdly powerful Continental Surveyor is when you combine it with.
Yeah, you can pick the Atlantean map, right?
Yeah, okay.
Go with that.
All right, and worker units. Let's actually begin with the extra pop in the city this time.
Sounds fine.
Too. Okay, and then what we can do is we can beeline for planetary survey and just get everybody embarked and going faster. I hope.
Play an exploration heavy one.
Yeah. All right, shove. 433D, and we will
be the new home of humanity.
Yeah, that's where I'm looking forward to going. Vadim Petrovich Kozlov. He's one of my favorite leaders to look at in the game. I think he has one of the coolest progressions from his, fairly basic cosmonaut suit up to, full affinity, where he's got his
regalia.
His regalia on.
In Supremacy, he's one of the more terrifying.
It's the yellow eyes.
In my opinion, there's no scarier leader than a full Supremacy Elodie, but
she's scary anyway.
She'll haunt your dreams.
So, interesting start this time. Notice, because we did not pick retrograde thrusters, we have a much smaller territory to choose from.
Right.
It seems to me we have one best choice here, which is right.
It could be. The an interesting side effect of this particular start is that you have the ability to start not on the coast if you don't want.
Right.
And many people play the game comment that the oceans scare them because of the giant sea creatures swimming around. So you can avoid kind of having to deal with that problem by building a landlocked city. And many others might say, well, how am I going to get by without coastal cities? Well, a subsequent city can easily be coastal.
Yeah.
But settling in the center of this continent would also let you claim basically this whole bottleneck and lock it off, so that only you can travel north and south, which could be tactically very advantageous.
Well, I think I'd like to do this because I'm hoping we'll be able to get to embarkation fairly quickly. So let's try that. And we come down again. Arid terrain this time. So we landed on an Arrakis with oceans. Interestingly enough.
So here you can see, if you pause a moment to look at the mini-map in the top right,
yes,
all of the continental outlines, and there are many. So you can see, for instance, that you are on the tip of a fairly thin island.
Yeah, it's like the last one we explored.
Right. So you can look at this and say, I'm probably safe. There's a low likelihood that another civ is going to land on the same landmass, and if they do, they're going to land farther to the south. So that gives you a little bit of freedom and a little bit of guidance in how you could expand and explore initially. You could, for instance, note that exploring north, you're probably only going to find more terrain, but exploring south, you could find lots of valuable stuff.
Yeah. Well, you know what?
It's not actually connected.
It's not actually connected. Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's even better for you. You probably have this whole island to yourself.
I probably do, but now I'm concerned there aren't going to be very many resource pods on it. I think the thing to do will be to get up on this hill and have a look.
Okay.
That is a lot of floatstone.
Might be a good place.
8. So we've got an 8 and a 3. That's
very
I'd put
nice.
city number 2 over here, because this will get picked up by
main city.
Carburost when it goes out. Yeah. Interesting. All right, some choices to make. Again, we jump back into our tech web. We're going to choose planetary survey. Get out of that for a moment. We're going to go into production real quick. What here?
Well, you're trying to find an orbital unit to launch.
Yeah.
So a second explorer, looking for more resource pods, getting to them before your neighbors.
Sounds good.
And you need to, like now, planetary survey is even more important because your embarkation to get off it.
Right. And I'm wondering, actually, if the alien nest is... Oh!
Oh, hey!
Hey,
there
look
you
at
go.
that!
Maybe that'll have one.
Yeah. It's kind of a little Firaxite bubble over there.
Seems like it might be a pretty good island to be on. A lot of bits and pieces.
Yeah, it's pretty solid. It's still kind of pushing me in a, kind of a purity direction right outright. But let's see what's in the resource pod. Energy.
Energy.
Okay.
That's useful, but still.
Still fine.
Remember that if you don't find one, you can always buy one.
Wow. This is a great little island. Like 2 algae resources off the coast, a Firaxite, gold, fiber. This is
It's a good spot.
That's not a bad little island.
And make sure that nobody else comes to live on it but you.
I agree. I think that'll keep me far enough away from the aliens that they won't object. I don't want to end my turn in miasma. Oh, crash satellite.
Okay.
The question is
Whether it's next to an
whether
alien
it's
nest.
next to an alien nest.
So
Yes.
move on to it, and you'll be able to see.
Yeah.
I think
That's
8 for Firaxite. So you might be rethinking what you were saying about purity. Although that's even more floatstone.
Yeah. Actually.
So you can either do the expedition, or go get that other resource pod.
So just apropos nothing, this is an interesting game that I may want to look at later on. Do we want to conduct the expedition? No, we want to get
it
this.
takes more time.
Wow! And Resolin. I love this place. This is a really good start. Get dinged by miasma. Aliens detected. Okay. Quest updated. Alright, so we're working on gifts from home right now, which is 500 resource pods. Oh!
There you go.
Yes!
Well done.
Solar collector! Alright, so we found a solar collector satellite. The solar collector raises energy for the tiles that are beneath it. So let's go to Carveros here. And we will choose our solar collector. We will launch it. I'm actually going to just drop it right on top of the city.
Right.
Bam. That makes me happy.
And there she is.
There it
floating
is.
Up there.
And that just triggered the free technology. So
now you could get planetary survey right away
I could.
and get yourself off the island, or you can get something a little more expensive that might be useful, like for instance chemistry, which could lead to the water refinery, which could be very useful.
Water refinery could be pretty cool. So we will go ahead and.
Before you decide, keep in mind that if you don't choose planetary survey, you're on your little island for at least another 15 turns.
But it's a nice island.
It is a nice island, and you still have parts of it to discover.
Okay.
So.
Well, I will tell you what. We will leave that as an open question, and just apropos of nothing. I'm gonna send this save to QA so they can evaluate it for.
Can tell you.
Mumble.
Can crunch the numbers and tell you which one was the correct
Right,
choice.
exactly. Look at this island. There's basalt there. There's all kinds of fiber. Resolin. Got a couple of forests I could chop down. Big old ball of Firaxite. Little old ball of Firaxite. So much floatstone. This is really. I like this. This
Can
is
support
nice.
2-3 powerful cities.
Pretty decent cities right there, and a nice block of hills like right in the middle too for production, things like that. All right. So with that, we will live out our gameplay for right now. Thank you very much for joining us on the live stream today.
My pleasure.
We're going to go back to the main menu for the time being, and we'll come back into our studio. We went over Seeded Start. People got a chance to see what those bonuses are. Hopefully they'll get a chance to think about how those pieces fit together and the kind of factions they're going to want to build in the course of the game. And I have a funny story to tell, which is right before the show, I was talking to Anton Stringer. And for everybody who's watching, Anton is one of the gameplay designers working on this. And I was like, we're going to talk about Seeded Start. And Anton's like, they may change. So for balance purposes, this is where we are with the game right now. We're going to be considering these, thinking about how these fit. These may change sometime between now and launch, but you know, that's the way Firaxis has always designed their games. It's a matter of iterate on the design, you know, find the fun, find what works well, and it's something you and Will have always said: avoid critical path through through design. Next week, August 28th at 2 p.m. Eastern, that's 11 a.m. Pacific and 8 p.m. Central European time. We're going to have our next live stream. On this one, we're going to talk more specifically about the affinities, how they play out the game, what it's like to play as those. Hopefully we'll be able to show you the 3 different affinities: purity, harmony, supremacy, in kind of their middle states, how they start to evolve out and differentiate in terms of gameplay. And again, I want to remind you of Firaxicon on September 27th here in Hunt Valley. Thank you guys for 18 years of solid support of Firaxis. We want to have a party for you, and we hope you will be part of it. Go to civilization.com for more information on that. And thanks for joining us. I hope you'll come back next Thursday, and we'll talk a little bit about affinities. Dave, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Okay. Have a great day.